GM all, welcome to the second episode of the Road to Router Mainnet series. I'm your host Nila, and we have two amazing guys joining us today. But before we get to that, if you've stumbled across this video, you must have also come across our socials where we've already announced our launch date of our router chain, which is going to be on the 30th of July 2024. So don't forget to mark your calendars for that and see you then. Coming back to the video, if you haven't watched episode 1, make sure you do before you continue watching this video, because that is where we talk all about the introduction to router protocol, where we answer all of your what, whys, hows, and whens of the birth of router. So coming back to today's video, episode 2 is all about the introduction to router chain, and we have the perfect people to assist us with this. So without further ado, drum roll, let's get them here. We have Mankena Venkatesh, who is a blockchain architect at Router, and we have Bharat Advani, who is part of our BD team. So welcome, guys. Great to have you here today.
Hi everyone, I'm Bharat. I'm also known as Advani on Twitter and TG. I've been part of the Router team for over a year now, and I handle business and partnerships. Basically, a complete degen. I've been in crypto for 2 cycles now, and I love exploring multiple things on chain and on multiple chains, and that's how Router and me kind of met.
Amazing. Sounds great. How about Benki? Benki, do you want to go next?
Yep. Hello everyone. Myself Venkatesh, and I'm with Router for the last 2 years. I'm working as a blockchain architect here, and for last 2 years we have been building Router chains, which is launching soon. And previous to Router, I have been working with Injective Protocol as a blockchain engineer, and before that, I was with Matic, which is now Polygon. I was also working as a blockchain developer at Polygon. So overall, I was in blockchain space for last 4 years and been working closely with building protocols with Polygon, with Injective, and now with Router. With the brainstorming, we thought about much more deeply, what are the challenges in the cross-chain ecosystem back then, and uh, the most important challenge which we observed was all the people are trying to solve for multi-chain applications, but none of the none of the use cases were truly cross-chain. What I meant by that is like no one is actually utilizing the potential of various blockchains out there and building a truly cross-chain optimized and scalable solution. So that's when the idea of stateful bridging came up, where if we can utilize the capabilities of all the chains which are connected and also build optimistic applications using middleware as a stateful mechanism, uh, which led to thought of stateful bridging, and which is yet to be launched as a router chain. Yeah. So we'll talk more about what middleware stateful bridging mean over the discussion. But yeah, that's how the thought of router chain has started.
Amazing. Okay, that is so good to hear.
So I believe like router chain coming to the space is definitely going to add a large enhancement both on chain level and also on DApp level. So ideally, I mean the functionality is for the user, but it just allows faster processing between transactions on different chains.
Amazing.
So router chain is built using Cosmos SDK, which is a mechanism to build custom blockchains using Tendermint consensus mechanism. So the advantage of using Cosmos SDK is it is very modular in nature, where there are pre-built modules which are available for you to use right away, which could be like a bank module or a staking module or slashing module, so on and so forth, and and also it also helps you to create your own modules on top of the existing modules, leveraging the boilerplate code, and provides you the workflow in terms of the execution of transactions. So it makes life simpler for developers to just focus on the business logic while creating custom modules instead of building everything from the scratch. So that's the major advantage going with the Cosmos SDK. And in terms of interoperability, any Cosmos chain which supports inter-blockchain communication, which is IBC protocol, they can interoperate with any other Cosmos blockchains. So by default, router chain is interoperable with other Cosmos chains through IBC, which is made quite easy because of the built-in IBC modules by Cosmos SDK. Also, yeah, as I mentioned, like the modules which are being used from Cosmos SDK are staking, slashing, distribution, bank, and so on.
Very good question. And in fact, to answer you correctly, the community is the core of everything that we're developing. Ultimately, the users, everyone that is, on Router and working with Router to help create a better, inclusive interoperability infrastructure. That's the reason we're here, and we're with the community for focusing on exactly where they want to use router's technology. So, very closely understanding where development is taking place, where the users would like to move assets between, and working with those networks, with applications, and within those ecosystems to allow for ease of liquidity flow or instruction flow between users and those chains. So ultimately, I mean, it's the community that helps us and directs us with each and every movement of theirs. It sort of like creates the entire narrative for us to deploy on different chains.
Right.
I mean, Venki, perhaps you're on tech side. If there's anything that you'd like to add as to how important the community's focus is for us, please feel free to do so.
Yeah,
Yes.
from tech standpoint, just to add, so community's role is very critical in securing the network because router chain is built using POS consensus mechanism where the validators or delegators will stake the tokens and proportional to the amount of the tokens that are staked is the security of the network. So the community plays a key role here where they will participate in the staking mechanism where they can stake their holding of route tokens and by doing so they are providing security to the network. Also they'll be earning the rewards for doing so. So that way community is part of security of the router chain. Yeah, so as I just mentioned, like router chain is using POS consensus. So any POS network is run by a set of validators who will be running the node in the network and validating all the transactions and blocks that are being produced. And also, delegators will be delegating their stake to the existing validators. In return, they will be earning some incentives as well. So, more the number of validators that are running the nodes, and also the amount of the stake that is being delegated to those validators determines the security and decentralization of the network. So that way, we are targeting to have close to 100 validators in a over a period of time. But to start with, we'll be starting with 35 to 40 validators on the mainnet launch. So that way, we are properly distributed, decentralized in terms of stake, also in terms of number of validators. And coming to the validation cost and the efficiency. So we we have an inflation parameters. So there is an tokens that get minted to incentivize the validators for running the node, and that inflation will vary between 1% to 7%. So that way, uh, as the more number of validators will join, uh, and we tried as the more number of validators stake in the network, the inflation parameters vary, and it will try to incentivize the validators to run the node. So also beyond that, we are also figuring out various mechanisms to incentivize validators through our ecosystem projects as well as our other treasury as well. So that way, validators will be well incentivized to run the node, and it should cover beyond their validation costs for sure.
We've been working on multiple chain ecosystems and with multiple chain partners. So one of the ones I'd like to highlight is with Scroll. Scroll has also been one of the fastest chains and top destinations for most people using Nitro. We have adapters built with Stone recently, and if anyone has ever staked on Stone, basically turned their Ethereum into Stone, we've made that a one-click solution where no matter where you have your assets on whichever EVM chain it is, or no matter whichever asset it is, you could directly with one click using our adapter on Stone, convert it into Stone on Scroll. So such integrations, I believe, are fueling dApps to allow movement of users from alternate chains into their ecosystems. And such like intent adapters can be completely customized according to dApp parameters to assist dApps and enable them to allow the flow of user and liquidity as they require them, um, enhancing basically the entire working of a dApp and also enhancing the um, UX of a user on chain, where without having to spend a lot of time and gas, they can directly have their work done in a few clicks.
Amazing. Other than Scroll, are there any other partnerships that you want to highlight?
Oh, there are tons. So, I mean, we're working with the multiple L1 EVM chains and a lot of non-EVMs as well. So, currently exploring parameters on adapters. As Venki said in the previous reply, that there are multiple different areas where our adapters can be applied. One such example is the work we've done with Lido as well, where any user can choose whatever asset they have available and with one click turn that into staked ETH on Lido. Not only do they get it staked on Ethereum, but they can also receive that staked ETH on a chain of their choice. Ideally, a user would have to do multiple steps and waste a lot of gas and time in getting this one-click solution done. This one-click solution is now enabled by Router. So such adaptations of our intent adapters are where we're aiming to be, and working with multiple different chain ecosystems and dApps within those ecosystems to enable them and make them possible. As we've been mentioning through this conversation, I think the capability of building any kind of adaptation into their ecosystem dApps and allowing workflows of users from no matter where they start their journey on whichever source chain, EVM or non-EVM. Router Mainnet sort of enhances that capability, where dApps can not only work across chains, but also build directly with Router and be omni-chain from the get-go. Therein, they'll be supporting every chain that Router will support as well, enhancing their limits and ensuring that they can basically have an omni-chain presence across multiple ecosystems all at once.
Moving on to Venki. Again, Venki, the question is for you. Can you tell us a little bit about the technical architecture behind Router Chain? And basically, our V2 support for both the AMP, which is arbitrary message passing, and asset bridge swapping.
Yep. Yep. So, router chain is built to solve for arbitrary message passing, where it's not just about tokens, but also any arbitrary data which you want to transfer from one chain to other chain will be transferred via in a secured manner. And the architecture would look like, on the chain A, we have a component called gateway contracts, where that is the gateway to submitting any cross-chain request from chain A. And once this request is submitted on the source chain, uh, the request will be listened to through events. All the validators will be listening to that request, and each validator will be validating the data of that event, and then they will be attesting the data and providing the signatures to the router chain. So this way, uh, unless we have majority of the validators, like 2 by 3 plus 1 majority of validators have attested that request, that request is not considered as valid. So this way, it is more secure because data cannot be tampered by single validator, and only unless majority attest the data, it will not go through to the next phases, right? So this is more important step in terms of securing the data, securely transmitting the data. So once these attestations are provided by the validators, so we have another component called relayer, which will relay this data along with the signatures to the destination gateway contract, where the gateway contract will verify the signatures and ensure that majority of the validators have signed that data, and then only it will execute that request on the destination chain. So in a nutshell, the arbitrary message um, passed between source to destination via router chain is validated by all the validators of the router chain, and transmitted by the relayer to the destination chains. This is high level idea of the arbitrary message passing, where there are much more complexity when it comes to different use cases and how those are handled via stateful bridging, which we'll discuss again going forward. And in terms of specifically for asset swap bridging, we have innovated a unique solution to solve for the transaction time and also the cost. So this is something called the architecture is something called as reverse verification mechanism, where just to give you high level idea, when user want to transfer any token from chain A to chain B, right? User will deposit the tokens on the source chain, and there are the liquidity providers who will be listening to these events, and they will take that request and they will source the liquidity, and they will immediately execute that request on the destination chain. So this way, the delay of the request is nothing but the block times of source chain and destination chain, because the liquidity provider will just take the request and execute it immediately on the destination chain. So this solves for better performance and reducing the transaction time. But here comes the challenge of how do you ensure that these transactions are valid, and how do the liquidity providers get back their money back, right? So that's where it comes to reverse verification mechanism, where once the liquidity provider has done the transaction on the destination chain, that request will go through the reverse verification, where it it gets validated by all the router chain validators and then submitted to the source chain for him to take back his liquidity. So this is very unique. This is majorly implemented for asset transfers to solve for transaction time, and also it is secured because through reverse verification, it again request gets validated by the majority of the validators, and only then it gets executed.
Yeah.
That was such a clean answer. I
Hello,
think,
my non-tech friends. Let me take over for you. Going back to a
yes.
quick courier example, basically what happens in reverse verification is the courier that is taking your parcel from point A to point B is incentivized to get your parcel to point B, because when they deliver your parcel, they get a receipt. And on getting that receipt, that's when they get paid for their courier delivery. So this entire process basically allows for each transaction to get validated individually, and every courier is motivated to complete at destination so that they can claim their reward. This basic
Yeah.
science is turned into a smart contract, and there we enable like workflows between EVM and non-EVMs.
Okay,
That's a
amazing.
great analogy, Bharat. Nice way of
Yeah,
putting it.
that's true. I think the career analogy is it's a very useful way to just explain chain security going forward. Okay, perfect. Next question is for Bharat, which is how does the launch of Router Chain align with our BD strategy, and what, according to you, are the key objectives that you aim to achieve in the first quarter post launch, without giving too much away, of
Well,
course?
it's season time for us, to be honest. We've been waiting for this moment for a very long time. The team has already been prepping for this moment. We have a range of multiple partners that we've tied up with on DApp levels, on chain ecosystem levels. We're also working with a few projects that are working directly on Router Chain. They're helping us scale the different adapters that we're building. So, from BD perspective, our main mission is to ensure that every human being that is on chain has used a service that is powered by Router at least once and has spoken about it at least twice. Because ultimately, we're trying to create a product on chain that is so reliable and functions so beautifully that it stands the test of time and can scale along with the rest of Web3. So, yep, that's our main mission. Of course, just wait for Router Mainnet to come out and go ahead and try each and every iteration of our adapter. You will definitely love it.
Amazing. That's a great message to put forward. Uh, Thank you. The next question is for you, and I want to get to the bitter parts, and I want to ask you, were there any challenges while implementing the stateful bridging for complex applications on Router Chain?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, especially with the stateful bridging, to build any complex applications, we went through various challenges, especially with the state consistency, because we need to ensure that data is consistent across multiple blockchains, and we should prevent discrepancies between the data. So that was one of the key challenge, and there is a complexity in terms of integrating various blockchains. Every blockchain has its own primitives, has its own way of validating the data, has its own way of writing the smart contracts, right? So, and then nitty gritties in terms of handling the decimals and so on and so forth. So, uh, we need to build a custom standard which could work across all the blockchains, and that standard is adopted across by our gateway contracts. So that way we brought in all the blockchains onto some common standard to integrate with our router chain. And there were again certain challenges in terms of performance as well. Majorly due to latency or throughput of various blockchains, uh, and some other challenges which I could think of are like there are blockchains which support smart contracts and blockchains like Bitcoin which doesn't support smart contracts. And to handle those cases as well, we need to innovate on that front as well. So yeah, these are quite few challenges in terms of handling this, handling stateful bridging and more on interoperability space.
Amazing. But we've got through it and we're counting down to our launch date. So we're all very excited. Bharat, do you want to add on to that? Any challenges that you think from BD's perspective while approaching the Router Chain launch?
Well, there are no challenges per se, but of course, I would say from BD perspective, because I think the tech team is really working hard and putting all they can to get everything enabled for the users. Of course, but the only thing is, I guess users always want to know when BTC, and when BTC is a tough one to answer because UTXO based blockchain does take time to crack because you need to figure out how we can, as Venki said, ensure that we have again the time and cost at the same levels as we have with other chains. So yeah, we'll be working towards that, and until then, until that challenge is tackled, I think we're going to look at that as the big one.
Okay, perfect. But I have another question for you as well, which is how does in the BD team, right? So how do you basically leverage your partnerships and how do you aim for long-term sustainable partnerships, basically?
Okay, so here's the thing, right? Every DApp has a mission and a goal. Our duty is to find out exactly how we can enhance their journey and make it easier for them to achieve their milestones. So we're really making friends here in the space and trying to ensure that each and every application gets the best that they can from Router. So in terms of longevity and sustainability, for us, it's ensuring that our partners can grow and scale in the space, and for us to enable that for them. So that I think is the right way to put it. We're always keen into understanding what the next step for our partners are, and if there's any way we can enhance that step for them, we're the front runners on that.
That's very well put. Thank you for the insight. Venki, I have another question for you, which is how do middlewares basically work on the router chain? And what do you think are the advantages of using middleware?
Yeah. So, yeah, let's discuss detailedly about middleware, right? So, where we are trying to solve for stateful bridging, where middleware contracts on router chain will act as a hub for all the messages that are being passed from chain A to chain B for a DApp. So, these are nothing but intermediaries where any transaction will coming from source chain will be intercepted, and the data is transformed to be adoptable for the destination chain, and there could be any validations and routing logic that should be present will be present on the middleware contracts. So this way, dapps can implement some custom functionalities or custom logic at a middleware layer to enhance their performance, to improve their throughput and all. They can put up their custom logic over there, and they can even respond to how what kind of events that are happening on different chains. Like so to give you one simple example, right? When, let's say, you're building a dApp where uh, we are transferring the tokens from chain A to chain B and from chain B to chain A as well, where a simple optimized solution could be you can build a middleware which could aggregate these two requests, and it can do the rebalancing of all the data, or all the tokens that need to be moved across, and then it can just come up with final set of transactions which need to be executed on the external chains. So this entire logic can sit on the router chain's middleware contracts, where it could take all the requests from various chains, it can do the rebalancing, and then finally reduce number of transactions which need to be executed on external chains. So this is a way of optimizing by batching and aggregating these transactions and reducing number of transactions on the destination chains. So middleware provides you that enhanced flexibility to create your custom logics, which could which could not be done by having this logic on single independent chains, right? And also it is very modular in nature, where you can create your custom modules on the middleware layer, which can be related to liquidity, it can be related to staking, and so on. So that way middleware can become your hub in terms of handling entire business logic at a single place, and just integration points can exist on the external chains, source and destination chains.
Yeah, that was so clearly put. But Bharat, do you have any career analogies for us? Or shall we move on to the next question?
Could you please repeat that question?
No, I said, do you have any career analogies for us?
Courier analogies. I don't think a middleware. Okay, the middleware is more like the functioning of the entire courier department. It's like the post office.
Right.
So it's like the post office technically. So couriers are being sent to multiple different countries, right? And they're all sent all the time. And in this particular instance, the courier is something which is pretty much fungible with other destinations in some sort. So you could say that this main center is sort of like responsible for allowing multiple offices to be set up, no matter how many ever end destinations there are, and those operations can be seamless between all those destinations all at once. Well, I guess that's the best you could get to an analogy for the middleware. But ultimately, the whole idea of having a chain is so that it allows for more composability for dApps to build like custom layers of application specific logic. It could also be application specific security layers, really making a dApp very independent and not having to worry about how many chains there are, which chain is growing, etc. They can worry about what they're building and leave the rest to us.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. I knew I could count on you for an analogy. Okay. I know I've taken up enough of your time, but let's do a last round of maybe just a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up. Okay. I hope that sounds good. So I think the next question I have is for the both of you. So any one of you can feel free and give me an answer for this. But what milestones or developments are you most excited for in the near future after the mainnet launch, after the router chain launch?
I'll let Venki go first.
Sure. Yeah, Venki.
Yeah. In terms of milestones which we are looking at, there are multiple. So, to start with, we are trying to integrate various blockchains and scale the network as well. So, uh, to start with, we are going ahead with Bitcoin, integration. So, which is currently work in progress, and after the mainnet launch, soon, we should be having Bitcoin support where you can transfer, via Bitcoin to other blockchains and vice versa. And there is again a development happening on integrating Solana network and Ton network and so on. So there are quite a lot of blockchains which we are currently working on to integrate and to expand user base across, which will unfold as after the mainnet, with all the new chains which are going to be integrated. And beyond that, there is a lot of innovation happening on the intent framework which we have built, and a lot of new adapters which we are building. So, which will again we'll be revealing once the mainnet happens. And there is something more exciting, in terms of security aspect which we are working on currently. We can't reveal much about that, but soon after the mainnet, we'll talk about it.
We love a good teaser and suspense. Bharat, would you like to add on to that?
Yeah, sure. So from my side, I believe milestones in terms of BD is, of course, to get as many users using the platform and all the applications we're building, helping applications build through the intent adapters. It's to sustain the low cost that we have on multiple new destinations and keep ensure that the transaction time stay as atomic as possible for users. I think these are the milestones that we are currently chasing to, let me mention TVL is not a milestone. Okay. It must be said because anytime someone thinks of a bridge, they're like, okay, should have a TVL. Our architecture is built to be low on TVL because we're relying on external liquidity providers for handling the bridging on destination and then rewarding them for, as I told you, courier completes their courier and then they get their reward, right? So therefore TVL is not one of our milestones. However, the number of transactions, the volume of transactions, the number of chains that we increase, as Venki correctly described, these are our milestones and we're chasing them relentlessly.
Perfect. I think we can see how hard from the tech team and the BD team, we can see how hard we're all pushing and we're so bullish on the router chain. So the last question I have.
Uh, Majorly, we are validating each of the cross-chain requests by all our validators. So each validator will be listening to the events of any cross-chain request, and they will be attesting the data. So for any single cross-chain request to go through, all the validators has to attest that data, or at least majority of the validators, which is 2 by 3 plus 1 validators, has to attest the data. Only then that request will go through, router chain. So unless all the 2 by 3 plus 1 validators collude, the data tampering cannot happen at all. And also on the destination chain, when this data is submitted, the data and the signatures are validated on the destination chain as well via our gateway contracts to ensure that all the signatures are valid and they all signed the same data or not. And specifically for the Nitro, which is our asset bridge, we also use message hashes where the message that is coming from the source chain will be hashed and then submitted to the destination chain. And in our reverse verification process, we'll verify the same message hash. So this ensures that hashes cannot be, tampered. The data cannot be tampered, and and it is checked against the, receiving data to detect any tampering. Yes.
That was so well put. And I think we've learned.
Yeah.
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 Please.
From technical point, I would like to add that router chain has a very new primitives to build, uh, like middleware contracts or reverse verification mechanism, and it has been built in a very modular architecture where anyone can customize and build their own applications. So and also it is very much friendly for the developers, where we have built a lot of tooling layer around integrating our gateway contracts, and we have built various SDKs to to submit transactions to router chain, or to validate their request and all. So it is super friendly for developer ecosystem. Also for users, we have built various tooling which are like for staking, for token transfers, or for swaps and all. We have very good tooling, and would love to see a lot of users, a lot of developers, coming over and building on router chain, trying out the products which are built on router chain upon the mainnet launch. And yeah, looking forward for that.
Perfect. That's a great message to our viewers. So, yeah, I think this is such a fruitful episode and we've learned a lot. I personally have learned a lot today. So, thank you so much for being here on episode 2. And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. And of course, I'm going to end with the usual monologue, was follow our socials, keep up with us, and of course, again, our mainnet launch, our router chain is launching on the 30th of July. So we'll see you then. Thank you so much for joining. Bye bye.